And with that, let's get things kicked off. Big day, big week. Let's go.
And we're live. You're listening to the Hashgraph Enthusiast Show.
Hosted by Brandon Davenport, aka itsbrandond.
Oh, hell yeah. INOs, mirror nodes, craziness. That's how it goes. I'm actually really excited to talk this week as well because there's been a few kind of like, it feels like there's been a lot of tough things to talk about, but also there's like a bunch of like funny things. Like there was like, it appears to be maybe like a new meme coin coming that's like doing like caricatures and sketches of people in the ecosystem, which is funny. There's a enterprise use case that's kind of like missing from the Hedera website in a weird way. We're going to talk about HIP-920, music metadata standards. That's been a big thing that I'm excited about. Of course, we're going to talk about INOs and everything that went down with HashPack and like all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about a little drop off in TPS that came back. Bunch of other stuff. I mean, right out the gate, HBAR price, what the market's doing. Let's take a quick peek. Yeah, I mean, like, DeFi on Hedera is, largely going to follow the rest of the market. I think right now, everybody in crypto, including the Hedera community and ecosystem, HBAR and stuff, like everyone's watching Bitcoin. Everyone's kind of seeing what's going on. There's also kind of been like record outflows in Bitcoin as well. So that's the other side to it, is like we've had these massive buys and massive liquidity influxes into the Bitcoin ETFs, which has been exciting. We've also seen much more talk about, the Ethereum ETFs. I noticed too, there's like some kind of state authority or something currently investigating the Swiss-based Ethereum Foundation. I don't know exactly what that's about. They put out an update, I think, on GitHub or something like that. So the Ethereum Foundation is, I wouldn't say they're like being investigated or audited or anything like that, but I don't know if people have any idea what to make of that news, but that was just something today. But definitely there's lots of movement when it comes to like the government, 3-letter agencies, crypto, money. I mean, it all points to a pending bull market, which is exciting. But I mean, really quick, this week we did see a drop off in transactions on Sunday, which is always interesting to see. Like we talk about this quite a bit on the show about how like, the activity on the Hedera mainnet is largely driven by Atma.io. Right? One use case, they're pushing currently, 1200 TPS through the mainnet. So that's exciting, but it means that a lot of the statistics for the network is going to be aligned with their own use case, right? So that's one thing I think that, people point to. And we did have a drop off, from going from, 1300 TPS down to, single digits over Sunday, kind of into Monday. And then we popped back up. So that's something the community spotted. I mean, it's worth noting, but yeah, lots to talk about today. It is episode 117. And the question here is like, is Hedera ready for the bull market? That I think that's what's on a lot of people's minds, is like, it's pretty clear the tides are turning, things are changing. And, it's kind of a question on people's minds. And I think any network really, like, let's be honest, any network, any layer 1 or layer 2 or anything like that, any project, that's what's on everyone's minds right now. Is like, oh, am I ready for this? Because a bull market comes with its own sets of challenges. We talk about challenges in a bear market. We felt those for well over a year, 2 years, but the reality is like a bull market comes with its own challenges. It's kind of just getting ready for a new set of challenges, really, that aren't just a lack of funds potentially. But yeah, episode 117. Pretty crazy. Real quick shout out to supporters of the show. means a lot. I mean, it's just a wallet that people send HBAR to, which is amazing. So makes the show happen, makes stuff like this happen. And yeah, I mean, huge shout out to supporters. If you want to get any more info on the show, hashgraph.news, go there, check it out. All past episodes are there. Lots of good info. Also, just to kick us off, something that I thought was kind of cool that, you know, I'm happy to see, I'm excited to see is there's some more meme coin action happening in the ecosystem. There's this new meme coin. Oh, actually for the spaces, I'm just going to pin the thread to the top of the spaces here. Something I missed. Like I said, I'm changing a lot about the show, so I'm still getting into a little bit of a routine here, but there's this meme coin called, I think there was that meme coin called like Elizabeth Warren, or it was like a misspelled Elizabeth Warren thing, and it had a little doodle, reminiscent of kind of like the Dolan memes or whatever. So I thought that was funny. Now there's one called Lehman Board, Lemun board. And it's just, it looks like it, you know, I go to the profile, looks like it's a meme coin with a token ID. It's funny. The thing here though, that I like is like, we got people like Christian Hasker tweeting and then, you know, this project is doing like caricatures of different community members and people are setting them as their profile pictures. So I don't know. I see this as just kind of they did one for John Wingate at Bank Social. They just did like a little, you know, doodle or whatever. So it's like, to be honest, again, this is another sign that like retail meme coins, they pack a punch when it comes to awareness, narrative, all these kinds of things that, you know, we're well aware of as a community, but also Hedera, the foundation, everybody has kind of made very apparent that like, you know, there are definitely gaps in the retail side. There are gaps in the marketing side. And I mean, some of this stuff, I know it's goofy and I know that a lot of people knock it, but it fills that gap a little bit. It's fun. I see it and it puts a smile on my face. Whether you invest in it or not is another thing, but grabs attention, makes people feel good. I don't see anything wrong with that right now. Big update from SaucerSwap too. Just getting some news out of the way before we dive into our main topics. This is really exciting. We talked about this on the show quite a bit. And apologies to people on Spaces. I know we have video now, which is great, but it's this. I wish people watching the recorded version could see this. The angle for the Twitter Spaces is like maybe like the worst angle you could think of. If I came up with what would be the worst camera placement for live streaming, it would be this. Like you can see my setup here and everything on Spaces. Hi, everybody. But this angle is horrible. I'm hoping I can find a way to bring like my main gear into Spaces. Maybe do a YouTube live stream. Like I said in the last episode, I'm going to do a survey for the show and get feedback from people. The show's definitely at a place now where it's like grown. And then now I'm like, I have so many ideas. I kind of want to figure out like what ones to do first. But back to SaucerSwap and no more on my horrible camera angle. Auto pools are coming to SaucerSwap tomorrow. Like this is huge. And it's exciting because this is like a new novel feature, right? Like this isn't just an upgrade to the platform or something like that. This is a substantial new feature going live tomorrow. And these auto pools allow you to deposit a single token to provide liquidity or multiple tokens or whatever you might want to, however you want to participate in providing liquidity. And through artificial intelligence and these models, it's going to help you manage your positions on SaucerSwap. I think that's something that's amazing. We talk a lot about, you know, this actually dovetails nicely into kind of this theme of retail and enterprise. We talk a lot in the Hedera ecosystem, and even, you know, the founders, Manson Lehman, talk a lot about artificial intelligence. We've even seen, you know, the president, you know, Charles Aikens, you know, talk about the intersection of DLT and AI. And it's like, naturally, you know, you think of Hedera and it's like you come at it from the enterprise angle, right? Where it's like provenance, trust, you know, data authenticity, tracking those things on the consensus service. but there's also like the retail side to it. You look at SaucerSwap and you go, well, is leveraging artificial intelligence to automatically help you manage your positions on a decentralized exchange, like doesn't that also sit at the intersection of DLT and AI? It's like, yeah, it does, you know? So again, I'm trying to take that thinking into this of not just looking at these paradigm shifts through the enterprise lens that I traditionally have being a Hedera investor. I'm also trying to always take an effort to look at it through the retail lens. And like the reality is, data provenance, trust, making sure that as models are trained, that all of that's kind of tracked. The family tree of an AI agent is tracked. Like all those things are so fundamental and important. But like when we talk about, again, the intersection of DLT and AI, you look at SaucerSwap and you go, oh, well, it's just a little artificial intelligence tool, helps you manage some numbers. It's like, okay, you can look at it that way. But if we talk about actual usage, actual value in helping users of the network relieve certain pain points and get more value out of the network, it's like, boom, this is a perfect use case right at the intersection of DLT and AI. So again, this is one of those opportunities. I'm talking to you, Foundation and Hedera and all those folks, is like, here's another great opportunity to like bring in a retail angle and go, when we talk about the intersection of DLT and AI, we're not just talking about fundamental enterprise level things like, what, for example, Equity Lab is doing with Hugging Face, with the ability, again, to track and authenticate those things on HCS. Those are so critical and important, but also speak to these kind of fun, immediate value add features that leverage AI. Like, I think it's great. So shout out to SaucerSwap. I'm stoked. There's some other interesting headlines in the space right now. I guess if anyone in the Hedera ecosystem kind of hasn't been tuned in, there's 4 kind of interesting and important ones. Number 1, of course, is the Ethereum Denver upgrade. This was really big. It's improving scalability and security across the network. It launched and went live on the 13th, so about a week ago. And I mean, of course, there were people in the Hedera community dunking on it, rightfully so. I mean, when you have an L1 that's doing an upgrade to lower fees and stuff, it's like, of course, if you're invested in Hedera, you're going to be like, well, duh. It seems like you're just polishing a turd. But remember, Ethereum is huge. A lot of people use it. It's a really great network, and it's getting better. So I think that's good for the space. I think it's good for crypto. I don't think that other networks not doing well is going to be helpful for Hedera. So shout out to Ethereum. And that's how competition works. It seems that a lot of the, the focus and attention that Hedera has been putting on, scalability, low fixed fees, or just even low fees, all these different types of things Hedera has been speaking to that kind of sounded a little maybe far-fetched, maybe putting the cart in front of the horse back in, 2017, 2018, 2019, but turns out, Hedera was really ahead of the curve. So that's something, and I mean, this season has really felt like, Hedera rightfully taking, and the foundation and, all those orgs, like taking a lot of heat and criticism, rightfully so. But I mean, this is one of those cases where it's like, you kind of have to, say bravo to Hedera and those organizations, just kind of on that long-term thinking. If we look at the aggregate of like Hedera going to a public network till today, that trend on those topics specifically, it does feel like Hedera is much further ahead and other networks are further behind. So it's really, what it really comes down, it's becoming more and more evident that, this maybe isn't so much going to be a utility bull market, right? There's still going to be a lot of narrative that's a part of it. I think that in the depths of the bear market, the hope was, this is going to be a utility bull market. Hedera is perfectly positioned, but like I've been saying in the past, right? It's going to be retail use cases, startups, grassroots approaches that are funded and supported by the network. Those things will get us to the top 5 networks. And the enterprise use cases and robust quality of the network is what's going to keep us in the top 5. That's my hypothesis. So I think that I think we're a little bit all over the map, but I think we kind of all know what's kind of going on. The other headline too, just real quick, is the Bitcoin market cap surpassed silver and hit an all-time high, which is pretty crazy. Like when you think about that, just pulling back, it wasn't too long ago that Bitcoin was at, low 5 figures, right? 15, 16K. Now we're talking about, the Bitcoin market cap has, at one point in the past couple of days surpassed silver. So it's wild. Starbucks shut down their NFTs. That was something that was kind of like a great example of how enterprises entering Web3. I think that, people often forget, the enterprise side of stuff is like enterprise is really just experimenting. Like enterprise is building on a bazillion networks at once. If you're doing software development or any kind of innovation type activity at an enterprise, you're using every single piece of software. You're using every single provider. You're using every single network. You're trying out every possible single thing, not just to experiment, but also like just for redundancy, all those different types of things. So it's like seeing Starbucks shut down their NFTs on, I believe it was Polygon. I was kind of like, I think that some people were surprised. I think that some people quite honestly, forgot about it. Maybe why they shut it down, but clearly, was some kind of experiment, right? They're shutting it down the 31st. So if you do have any Starbucks NFTs or whatever, do what you got to do. But shout out to Starbucks, I guess. I've said don't give up. Try out a new experiment on Hedera. Maybe that'd be kind of cool. I sent a tweet and I was like, fun fact, the whole network was booted up at one of your locations. So there's that too. Also too, Craig Wright lost a court case. Judges ruled that he is not Satoshi Nakamoto. I don't know. I just found this funny. It's like this Craig Wright guy, if anyone's familiar with it, he's always like, I'm Satoshi Nakamoto. And a judge really wasn't. So I just thought that was kind of funny. If you need a laugh, go check that out. But one thing that was kind of cool, just switching gears here for a bit to the Hedera side, was, previous episodes I was talking about ETH Denver. I was at ETH Denver. I was helping out Hedera, and I was also with the Hgraph team, which was great. Like I've been saying, working at a mirror node provider, it's like I feel like I'm looking at the network for the first time again, just from a different perspective. I'm learning so much about it, looking at it through that lens. But being at Ethereum Denver was great. And one thing that was crazy is, if we want to look at maybe kind of a metric to gauge growth of the Hedera network from a developer standpoint, I think a great example is the hackathon or buildathon at Ethereum Denver. Last year at Ethereum Denver, I believe Hedera had one or some odd, they had barely any submissions. Just again, because EVM equivalence was not quite fully fledged and fleshed out yet, and all these different types of things. So this Ethereum Denver, there's 27 submissions. So I know that in aggregate, it might not be that big of a number, but when you actually look at trying to see signals of developer interest and activity on Hedera, a jump from 1 to 27 is a pretty big jump. So I would say that, Hedera's efforts at these events where they are kind of an underdog, I think are paying off. So, I mean, shout out to the team that kind of coordinated the hackathon. I mean, it's pretty impressive. And that's what the beginnings of this kind of growth looks like, is really kind of paying attention to, to those smaller numbers sometimes, because they can definitely indicate some future success. Something else I wanted to talk about, and it's actually great because, Tom, I don't know if you're available. I see Tom listening below. He is a founder of a new use case coming that just put out a tweet, PixFi, that's a NFT marketplace aggregator. And I know that Tom is involved with that project. I don't know if you want to come up and chat about it real quick, but feel free to request to speak. Would be more than happy to have you up and get some alpha on PixFi. Real quick too, one thing that was pointed out by the community was someone posted, I think it was Sivo, aka Parabolic HBAR on X. He posted, so Hedera shared, or was it Hedera? Yeah, it was Hedera. Hedera shared their use cases page, which kind of, outlines, use cases on the network, and it's kind of on the official website. And they list all the different like real world asset tokenization use cases on Hedera, and you can kind of see them. I'm just scrolling through them on my computer. We got, Diamond Standard, Red Swan, Aberdeen, all that kind of good stuff. We got all the things here. It's an upgraded page. I mean, it looks great. But Sivo commented, "Where's Toko?" And if people recall, Toko is a use case from DLA Piper. We've talked about it a lot on the show, and I think people have talked about it a lot in the ecosystem in general. Toko is like, again, from DLA Piper, governing council member. They're tokenizing, real estate, like all these different types of things. It's a very kind of prominent, exciting use case. And they're just not on that page anymore. So it's kind of, I wouldn't say that is to mean, Toko's not around anymore or something like that, but it's worth highlighting. It's kind of like a little bit weird that, a flagship, enterprise real world asset use case isn't on the page anymore, but it is what it is. I also want to talk about HIP-920 music metadata, which is something near and dear to my heart. And I'm really excited to finally have it over the hump. We're going to talk about that, but real quick, just another mention for people listening. Please, if you support the show, everyone who supports the show, really appreciate all you folks. Planning on doing some pretty exciting things with the show. Like I said, I got a few ideas in the old thinker here. But really it's about getting community feedback, hearing new ideas for the show. I'm going to be doing a survey. I told you last week, I want to get it out there. And for the purposes of just kind of being like, hey, if you were running the show, what would you do? I get feedback from people all the time about the show as well. And, I think I just kind of want to get a better sense, mostly from people who listen to the show regularly. Because I think there's a lot of opportunity here. I've tried out a lot of different experiments, a lot of different formats, as you've seen. We've gone more news heavy. We've gone more interview heavy. I'm at a point now where I'm kind of like, okay, let's take a look at the last 2 or 3 years of the show. What was really, really great? What do people love the most? Let's throw everything else away and let's double down on those things. So I'm really excited about that. I'm feeling fresh with the show. As you've noticed too, like I'm not doing like, the show in the past has been very, very scripted and slowly becoming less scripted because you got to have a structure. And to be honest, after years of doing the show, I don't feel I need that kind of structure so much anymore. Free flowing, and kind of just leaning into the live aspect of it. It's fun having a live show. Like I see people listening. It's like there's at least 3 or 4 people listening right now that I'd love to interview right here on the spot. And a live show, you can do that, with everyone else listening right here. So I think it's great. I actually going to take a quick screenshot. There we go. Mark the occasion of Twitter Spaces working with video. All right. HIP-920. What's it all about? What's going on? And why is it important? So HIP-920. What is a HIP? First of all, just for people, listening that might be excited about music, metadata and all that kind of stuff, might not know like what I mean by HIP. So HIP stands for Hedera Improvement Proposal. It's this, albeit, sometimes complex system, but it is a system in which anybody that uses Hedera or anybody who is aware of Hedera can have an idea of what they'd like to do, get that idea out there to the development community on GitHub, right? And GitHub is kind of a website where most of the software that you use, most of the websites that you visit, they're developed on GitHub, from your Apple iPhone to your Google Android to, you know, any website. So GitHub is really where a lot of development happens. So you get your idea, throw it into GitHub, and you form a consensus around it, right? You try to get people involved, you get the idea moving, then you make a formal HIP, which is like this big document that has like an abstract and all these different types of things. You outline whatever you're trying to do, you submit that, and then it just goes through these stages, and then it eventually gets approved. And then on hips.hedera.com is where you can see all the approved HIPs, all the upcoming ones, including, you know, the airdrop HIP that we talked about last week and different things like that. And one of those HIPs is called HIP-920, and the numbers basically are connected to those conversations on GitHub, essentially. So HIP-920 is it's a HIP that took a bit of a different approach, and one that kind of has been taken a little bit. I'd say about a year ago, there was a group that was started by myself and Patches and a few other community members. Patches is listening right now. Shout out Patches. This HIP wouldn't exist without Patches and this group. So the Hashgraph NFT working group is a collaborative group of builders on Hedera that want to do cool music stuff. And the vision of that group is, of course, you know, it's the Hashgraph NFT working group. It's for NFT stuff on Hedera. But initially, what was important is to go, well, what's a big problem that needs to be solved right now? And a big problem that had to be solved was music metadata standards, right? And music metadata standards are so important because with an NFT, the metadata of your NFT is like the DNA of it, right? It's this little bit of code that tells what's inside the NFT, what does it do, where are those things that are inside of it, and then when you're using an application on Hedera, like let's say a wallet or a launchpad or a music player, like what's the title of the song, how long is the song, what are the lyrics, who's the song by, is there any other data out there on the internet that I have to connect with? So that set of instructions, that metadata, is so important. And we solved this problem before in a really big way with HIP-412, right? Which was metadata standards for any NFT. And it was kind of this one size fits all. And it basically unlocked the ecosystem that we have now. Standards are so important. And they're important because everybody has to be speaking the same language, right? If you're a creator making an NFT, or if you're a marketplace, or if you're a wallet, you all have to agree upon what things are called inside the NFT. Like how, you know, what's an image called, or where do we put the title? Does an NFT have a description? How do we put multiple files in there? And because it's code, you all have to work on it together and agree on it. So that way everyone's speaking the same language. And when you have a HIP that goes out there on the Hedera website, it makes it official. It gives you something to point to. So that way builders and creators in the future can go look at it and say, here's how I do that thing. And then they become compatible with everything. So standards are so important. And the music industry for decades has depended on metadata. And a great example of this is if you've ever, a great example is if you've ever gone on like, LimeWire or Pirate Bay or something like that and downloaded an MP3 for your favorite band, right? You drag that MP3 into iTunes or back in the day, like Winamp or like whatever it might be. And then from that little single MP3 file that has like maybe like a weird file name, and you bring that into your music player, like magic, it's like, boom, it knows the artist name, it knows the album, it knows the year it was released, it knows the copyrights, all that kind of stuff. And that's all information stored in metadata in that MP3 file. So we're not really reinventing the wheel with HIP-920. Basically what this HIP is about, what these music metadata standards are about is, onboarding the music industry to Hedera, right? Making it possible for all the work that they've been doing for all these decades to work properly on Hedera. And further than that, use little connectors that exist in the music industry, like ISRC codes or UPC codes that you'll find on the back of a CD, or like, as part of like an, Apple Music or Spotify streaming or whatever. Put those in the NFT too, so they can call existing databases that Spotify uses. Like, build these connections, make this stuff possible. That was the beautiful thing about HIP-412, the original standards, is there was this kind of undefined area in those metadata standards called properties, which is where you can just kind of put a bunch of stuff. And that's what this HIP-920 is about, is it's saying, for music, this is the stuff we need. And so HIP-920 was just published on, I think it was, it's moving so fast. It was just published yesterday on GitHub. And I want to give people a bit of a walkthrough, kind of like, how do you actually use this stuff? Because I find that for people who aren't developers, it's really difficult to get involved in this stuff. So how do you get involved with HIP 920? So there's a thread that was shared by the Hashgraph NFT working group on X. Give them a follow. I'm a part of that working group. Patches is a part of that working group. Tons of really great members of that working group, including TuneFM, Seeky, HashPack, NFTier, Swirlds, my agency with Josh, Dirksen and Davenport, Turtle Moon. So there's so many different members of this, Vasizi as well. And the working group isn't just developers, right? It's artists and music industry people too. This is a standard made by artists for artists. Let's go into it and see what it looks like. So this is GitHub. This is kind of like the hip of where it is. This page here is kind of where it lives. And as you can see, some folks are providing feedback, maybe some potential changes. This one's for lyrics. This one's for reducing redundancies with track data. So there's like conversations happening here. And this on GitHub is called a pull request. This is basically the NFT working group saying, hey, here's our idea. We've got it ready to go. We want to merge it into the Hashgraph. And before we do that, let's have a conversation about it. So we're making a request. It's a pull request, is what's it called on GitHub. And this is what the HIP will look like on the Hedera website. So if I go to the Hedera website here, HIP-920. So this is what the HIP looks like, right? We've got the author and working group, the status, all those different types of things. And then here's the actual written content of the HIP. So like, as I was saying, as standards, right? So this is explaining what the HIP is about. Why was it made? How would someone use it? What's the specification, right? A lot of this technical kind of stuff, an example of how it works. So I was talking about a code snippet, right? So here's how that actual code snippet works and how it looks. So this is it right here. This is an example that you can use to run your own experiments and see if there's any problems with the standards that you want to help correct before it gets finalized, and a bunch of other info. So that's what a HIP looks like. That's kind of what the process is and where this group is coming at it from. And really the next question is like, so what's next? Like, where are we at right now? What do the next steps look like? And I would say, right now, 8 months of work is accomplished by tons of really smart people, on this HIP. And where we're at right now is where the group is showing that work to the whole Hedera community with the hope of saying, find problems with this, break this, experiment with this standard, and let us know your thoughts. Let us know how we can make it better. So if you have ideas on how we can make it better, or if you just have ideas for new things to try, go on GitHub. If you don't have a GitHub account, make one. It's really easy. And go in there, join the discussion, make those suggestions. You can actually edit the files, right? And it'll show your edits. And if they're good, they can just be added. So really, GitHub's a really great tool for that. It can be a bit of a learning curve. And it is difficult, I think, for the broader community to be involved in this process. I mean, being real, it's like GitHub is hard to learn for a lot of people. So what I will say is a great way to get involved is reach out to the Hashgraph NFT working group on X, comment on that Twitter thread, send DMs to that account. We want to meet people halfway as well in the group. We want to make sure every voice is heard. So if you're not a developer, you don't quite have the hang of it, you don't feel quite comfortable, that's fine too. Share your ideas on X, share your ideas with the group. And yeah, the goal is just to keep people updated. And the next step here looks like a couple of weeks, right? We're not in a huge rush here. The work's been done. We want to give the community time, right, to give this a look over and share their thoughts. And maybe there's some objections or debates that have to happen. That stuff is super important. So, and I mean, also as well as the author of the HIP, feel free to DM me or message me or any ideas like that. My job as a HIP author and kind of the role of a HIP author, it's kind of a formality. I don't want people to, the one thing I want to avoid is people seeing this as kind of like maybe my HIP or something. It's not. My name as an author is literally just a technical formality. The role of the author is just to make sure that conversations can happen, that information's organized, and that the requested changes get done, that we can form consensus. That's all I'm doing. It's the NFT working group that made this HIP. Me being an author is just a formality of pushing it along. So if you see a HIP author, they're the person to reach out to in regards to that. So just huge shout out to the Hashgraph NFT working group. Check that stuff out. And yeah, I think the future, what this looks like is more music on Hedera, the music industry being able to onboard into Web3, and people being able to create music that's also compatible elsewhere on other networks as well. And also too, making it so all the great music that's already been created by artists out there, that's already up on Spotify and Apple Music and maybe available as CDs in a store or something somewhere, essentially it makes it possible for them to port all of that stuff over to Hedera without having to duplicate everything. So it's just about opening doors, making things possible, and also too, making it so wallets and marketplaces and music platforms can finally get started. Because if you're not speaking the same language, if there isn't those standards, it's really hard for people to get started. So this removes blockers. Let's get it done. And just thrilled to have it out there. And another huge shout out to all the amazing hard work by the Hashgraph NFT working group. Super stoked. I love it. I want to talk now about INOs. Lots and lots of discussion in the community. We've got clarity now. And I think the huge benefit here is we've learned so much, which is amazing. I know Pluto from HashPack is listening right now. Pluto, if you want to hop up and chat a bit, by all means, feel free. Not to put you on the spot at all, but basically, HashPack has raised over $2 million, I believe, with their INO for their pack token. And this is big. Like if we just take that headline alone, that's a really big signal about this ecosystem, right? We've got a startup that was able to raise $2 million by themselves with their community in the Hedera ecosystem. And really, like everything else aside, that's just a great headline to see. And I think that that's ultimately what will stand after all the dust settles. And again, I think that, for people that say, there's no liquidity here, or that, that the NFT ecosystem, the DeFi ecosystem on Hedera isn't on the up and up, this is something to push back with. It's like, hey, we did have, a massive fundraising effort by a project in our ecosystem. And it's not just HashPack too. We've had a bunch of different INOs happen. We had one for, well, not an INO, or I guess it was technically an INO, but for Citadel wallet on Headstarter, right? For that hardware wallet. So we're seeing these types of efforts happen. And I think that they are so important when we talk about funding in this ecosystem. Like this is literally the dream, right? Community funded startup projects. Like, this stuff is amazing. But as you kind of peel back the layers and as you get into it, of course, the old saying of technology, move fast and break things. There's the break things part as well. And so I think that we have to bring in a little context for what this is all about and kind of pull back a little bit and go, when we have like a breakthrough mint on Hedera, and what I mean by that is, I'll go back. This is for the gray hairs in the ecosystem, the OGs. I think about the original Hangry Barboons mint. I think about the original Hgraph Punks mint. I think about a bunch of these early mints that really went horrible, right? There's a lot of problems with them, and stuff just broke. But it's not new to me. I think anyone who's been in the technology industry for a while understands that, like, all the time you'll have whether it's Web3 or not, you'll have a company launch a product. And if it's good, guess what? Their servers are going down. They're having scaling issues. Great example is it was over a year ago, the launch of ChatGPT. That was like horrible. It's like their systems weren't scaling. People weren't able to send messages. It was a horrible user experience when it got started. And I think that's there's a funny saying. I can't remember who said it, but like, if you want to find out if you have product market fit as a software company, just turn off your servers and see what happens. And that's kind of what happens in the startup industry. You kind of find that out. And what I'm getting at is, this is just kind of what scaling looks like, is if a network is a muscles grow because they just break down, they hurt. You cause damage, and then the muscle regrows and repairs itself stronger. Right. And so that's kind of how a network functions. And sometimes it is a failure on hardware. Sometimes it's a failure on software. I'd say that mostly it's just people making mistakes because things are crazy. I can't tell you how many times I've personally been a part of, major launches or all sorts of different things where in the heat of the moment, you just make decisions and stuff just doesn't end up working out, and mistakes are made. And it turns out it had nothing to do with the technology. It was just a mistake that was made. And also too, it's like that stuff just happens. That's the reality of moving fast and breaking things. That's what people want. That's why we're in Web3. And so I think that the outlying variable then is also, I think that communications is also really important. And I think that, it's easy to find flaws in how a startup or project attempts to do something really big and then fails in that moment. It's really easy to kind of like, pick it apart in the moment, but again, we pull back, and kind of what I was saying is like, what's the headline out of all this? It's, a startup in Hedera raised $2 million. It's like, let's add it to the pile. I think that's overall, if that's the takeaway, and as a community, we're really hoping to send a signal to the broader industry that this ecosystem is thriving and ready for more. I say we, take that and run with it. I think that's fantastic. I think that what the real issue boiled down to, and I know Pluto's listening, is like, the tweet that gets sent that's like, Hedera's on its knees or whatever. I saw that tweet and I was like, it's like, it's not true. But the thing is like, think about how crazy that moment is. You're running this giant mint and just like stuff's going crazy. And it's like, stuff just happens in the moment. Like, that's the reality of it. You see stuff like that unfold. If you're familiar with software development, if you're familiar with these types of things, it's like, again, the break things part of move fast and break things. It is what it is. And after the fact, I think that stuff's handled really well. Clean things up. There was a really, really great postmortem that broke down all the information. HashPack just basically owned all that stuff. It's just what you got to do. It's like, hey, we messed up. It wasn't the experience we wanted to provide. And it is what it is, and there's huge numbers. I mean, there was like 3 million requests that were made in the wallet. Something really great that May said on a Spaces yesterday that I was on was that, there's another aspect to this that we forget about, is like there are improvements every time. And a complaint previously with mints was like the wallet wasn't working properly and stuff was going down. It's like this time around, there was a huge improvement. The wallet itself was like rock solid. So it was this mixture that I saw. Like I was obviously someone that was participating in the mint. I was in the chaos. And that was something I kind of, during the mint, I was like, oh, the wallet's like rock stable. Like, this is great. Like, that was one thing I noticed during it. And I was like, okay, they fixed that, obviously. That's fantastic. They got a new, like, kind of scaling solution. So it's like, I think that if you're going to be an early adopter into technology, it's like when you have big moments like this, it's like for sure stuff will go wrong. But like there are things that are improved along the way. And when you get over it, when you get through it, when the thing's done, it's like, sure, it didn't go perfect, but it happened. And you get the beautiful headline from it. So I think that all in all, it's like, I think HashPack is just another one of these projects that attempts to shoot for deep space and hit the moon on the way, and I just think that's what it takes. You gotta applaud that. And things are just going to be a little bit messy sometimes. That's just the reality of it. The secret here in this space is not to make the best decisions possible, right? It's to make as many decisions as quickly as possible. That's really the key that a lot of people don't understand when you're doing things like this. Is it's really you just don't have the bandwidth, you don't have the manpower, you don't have the resources to just make every decision perfect. It's like you have to make as many decisions as quickly as possible and not worry so much about the quality of those decisions. They just have to be made to get the thing done. And thing got done, and it ended up working out. And I think that the postmortem did a good job of breaking it down. To me, it just looked like it appeared as a crazy, energetic attempt by a startup in the technology industry. I see it all the time. I love it. And that's how networks scale. And that kind of brings me to like, the part of this, which is, where mirror nodes come into the conversation. And I've got a unique perspective on this. I work at Hgraph, a mirror node provider in the ecosystem. And I think that another aspect of this is, and something that I've been quite frankly pretty worried about, is the lack of education and understanding of like what mirror nodes are and why they're important, and what resources are required to make a healthy ecosystem. I just don't think people knew about that stuff. I don't think people really understood like what a mirror node was versus a consensus node, right? And so I think that is something where situations like this kind of delight me in a way, where I go, everybody's talking about mirror nodes right now. And it feels like over a 48-hour period, the community has gotten a massive crash course in what a mirror node is and what it's all about. And I think that that's something that I always try to focus on. Again, I brought up those examples of previous big events in the Hedera ecosystem that either like kind of go wrong or break or something happens or whatever, and people get upset and freak out or whatever. Every time those things happen, I just always notice, the curtain being pulled back and new information being exposed, people learning things very rapidly. I find that the fastest way to learn things in this space is like when things go wrong. As a community, it's like that's generally when most of the learning happens. So I think, oh, actually, real quick too, something was just posted yesterday that I want to bring people's attention to, which was the at Hedera Devs X account posted a really, really great educational thread on what mirror nodes are and how they work. That's just fantastic. And again, that's a direct result of stuff going wrong with the HashPack INO, right? That's the silver lining to all this, is like, when you have a startup do bold things, whether it works or not, to whatever degree, it just brings people together, and it causes like this influx of information sharing and knowledge and stuff like that. Like, scaling is not pretty. Like, scaling technology, scaling a network, scaling a community, like, it is not easy. It's not pretty. It's very messy, and it just has to get done. And it's like, this is what it looks like. You know, a lot of times problems don't get fixed if they aren't experienced. It's very rare that a major problem will kind of like be seen down the road and be fixed before it happens. It's like, no, it has to happen. Feels like a dozen times before it gets fixed. But if it doesn't happen, if people don't stop doing bold things and venturing out and being fearless in those ways, you know, I don't think we're going to scale if we don't do those things. So just got to say, like, just, you know, before I wrap up my thoughts on the INO stuff, I mean, shout out to the HashPack team. It's not easy doing stuff like this, especially when, you know, you have people that are upset, because that's one thing that makes this different than a lot of things. I know that I'm drawing a lot of similarities between, like, oh, this is just a similar thing to like a bunch of other stuff that happens in the tech industry. But the one thing that does make it different is in Web3 is there's a lot of money, right? People want to buy something to make more money. It's very speculative. There's a lot of greed, a lot of bad qualities to it, you know, and I think that that's also something new that the technology industry is learning to deal with, of like, oh, it's not, people aren't just upset that, you know, they weren't able to use the product. They're upset because they missed out on some, you know, generational wealth or something like that. So there's also that aspect, as well, you know? So I think all in all, huge shout out to HashPack. I encourage them to continue doing crazy stuff that might break things. I think that's I think that the worst outcome that could happen from this, to like, just being honest, the worst outcome that could happen from this is folks like HashPack becoming more reluctant on doing crazy stuff like this and decreasing their appetite for risk. Because that's what happens as startups grow and as they experience stuff like this, is their appetite for risk and adventure starts to shrink, because this stuff is hard, you know? And I want to give a message out to HashPack and, you know, other, you know, all the wallets out there, you know, Blade, Kabila, Galaxy, Drop, and then, you know, other people doing INOs, right? We got an INO coming from Earthlings, or no, they did their INO yesterday. I missed it. I was in meetings. So like, there's another INO that happened. You know, I want to encourage those startups, especially at this early phase in the industry. It's like, just keep being bold, keep doing crazy stuff, keep that big appetite for risk, you know, continue breaking stuff. It's what it takes, you know, and people will be upset. But you know, it is what it is. And, you know, we can split hairs all day about what could have been done or what, you know, whatever. But at the end of the day, the solution is, you know, the solution turns out to be something really easy. It was just a rate limit on the mirror node service they're using. The information that HashPack was trying to retrieve from the mirror nodes, right? The consensus nodes, you know, are the ones that create transactions, move things through the network. The mirror nodes hold all that data. HashPack was trying to get that data of like token balances and how many have been sold and all these types of things. And it's like, they were sending, you know, 2,000-3,000 requests, you know, per second to these mirror nodes, and they were just being capped. So that's really what it turned out to be. It was like, oh, decisions in the moment had to be made incredibly quickly. And one of those decisions was not great, and it happens, but that's all it is like, That's the learning. You move forward, you do it again. And the beauty of it too is because it's done so in Web3, it's done transparently. Like May was on a Spaces yesterday. It's like, it's not just something that HashPack learned. It's something that everybody learned. And I think that I think is why Web3 is so great and why it's a little bit of an evolving beyond just Web2 is like, once one person learns, kind of like everybody learns. And so working at a mirror node provider, I'm like, this is just things to watch, understand, and just get better together. If one person, experiences something like this, it's like, it's on us to all, try to implement that solution, try to avoid it from happening, educate each other. That's what's happening, which is great. And I like to see it. But there is a lot of noise. I do want to say that, I think that, there's a pattern that I see with certain people in the ecosystem, largely, people that have been in Hedera for a long time. And I'll give everyone here like a quick tip to kind of see whether someone's feedback is worth listening to. And something I've found in the past is when stuff like this happens, generally I find that there are certain people that talk about themselves in a weird way while these things are happening, and kind of make things about them in a little bit, in a way. And there's these people in every ecosystem. I'm not talking about Hedera specifically. Like I was in a band, right? I'm talking about the music industry. I'm talking about the tech industry more broadly. In my experience over the years that I've been, in business and like creative and stuff like that, it's like, I do find that I see people that when things like this happen, use it as an opportunity to talk about themselves versus contribute to the larger conversation. And I kind of find that is the line for me, right? I think that more than not is so many people contributing to the conversation, trying to figure out like what went wrong, going into like a little bit of a detective mode, figuring things out. And I love to see that. I love to see that because it starts out a little heated, right? But now where we're at is like, okay, we've all got new info. We're trying stuff. And then I find that sometimes, there's people that just kind of make it about themselves. And that's the challenge, I think, sometimes. So I try to ignore those people because it's not about them. It's about the community overcoming challenges together. And, and there's always somebody taking the brunt of that messed up, right? Somebody messed up, something went wrong, someone's taking the heat, that's the role they're playing. The role the community's playing is playing detective, trying to figure out what happened. And then, just ignore people that are kind of in their own corner doing their own thing. I wouldn't worry too much about that. And I'd say, just to move before we just move on is like, the big picture here is this. In general, NFT mints on Hedera have been like horrible. And in the recent months and recent year even they've been fantastic, right? So if we like everyone, the meme is like zoom out, right? So I want people to like zoom out here, right? Zoom out from HashPack, zoom out from Earthlings, zoom out from Citadel Wallet, zoom out and really kind of go, couple of years ago, what was it like minting an NFT versus now? Night and day, absolutely night and day. And I think that's really the takeaway for me is the stuff just keeps getting better, and so we can't forget the break things part of move fast and break things. And it's funny too, because this is happening on the like enterprise network, right? It's like, we're the adults in the room. I think we got to stop saying we're the adults in the room. I always kind of cringe when someone on Hedera is like, we're the adults in the room. It's like, well, try scrolling Hedera Twitter. It's like, we're not exactly that. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that that's this pathway to decentralization, right? I see Christian Hasker this morning with like a new profile picture that's like a doodle from a meme coin and all that kind of stuff. It's like the executives at Hedera and related organizations, as they become more degen-pilled, it contributes to our pathway to decentralization. That's my thesis. Let me see here. Oh yeah, this was a great tweet. I want to share this really quick with people. I think I know who runs this X account, but I'm not going to say who it is because I guess they sent it from this X account because they don't want to send it themselves. But anyways, you know who you are. Shout out. I agree with this. And also too, what a Twitter account at HBAR. So at HBAR tweets, Hedera should require all council members to acquire a portion of the HBAR needed to stake to their nodes. Right now, they just borrow from Treasury. When a council member leaves, they don't retain any HBAR. This would put more skin in the game besides brand. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, there's easy rebuttals to that, but also that part of me is just kind of like, I mean, it makes sense, you know? So I mean, it was in response to a tweet. Someone's just like, can Google just buy 1 billion HBAR on the open market so we can be happy again? And I guess that's like a funny meme tweet, but like when you actually put it into practice, you actually think about it from a business standpoint. It's like, well, yeah, why not? So I thought that was interesting. I thought that was worth touching on. Also too, look out, Hitachi. Let's go. Governing council member Hitachi collaborating with Nvidia for Gen AI, driving digital transformation, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. The first initiative is developing Hitachi IQ with a lowercase I, which is a lesson that we learn in technology, which is if you have a product that has the letter I in it at the beginning, it must be lowercase. That's the rule. Is this using Hedera? We have no clue. No idea. Let me do a Command F. Hedera. Nothing. So this is another one of those stories in the ecosystem that's like governing council member doing something exciting with this like crazy company. We've seen it before and we get excited. But the reason I'm watching this story in particular is because it's definitely in the wheelhouse of what we've talked about recently when it comes to Hedera and AI is, provenance, trust of these models, of the actions they take, how they're trained. It's a big problem in artificial intelligence, right? You get a model and you're telling it to do stuff. You don't quite know how it was trained or what model it's based off of. So I think that, this kind of stuff, I want to watch it because it would not be surprising if, Hedera comes into the fold in some capacity. It would be very, very, very interesting. And got one more thing I want to talk about today. A little bit of a shorter show today. We've had some really long shows recently because I feel like this year's just been crazy. Like with ETH Denver, starting my new gig at Hashgraph, 3 new governing council members so far this year, like out of nowhere. I don't know. It's felt nuts. So I was kind of like happy to see a week where there weren't like major news stories. So I could take a little bit more of a retail, like this is more of a retail vibe. I want to move on to I'm not going to call it a story. It was just literally a question and a poll that I posted to the community, just off the cuff. Is Hedera ready for the bull market? As we talked about at the top of the show, I think that's the question on everyone's mind. And it's a question on the mind of everybody. Again, that's like, if you're in crypto, that's a question that you're asking yourself right now. And it's a question that I think that, the Hedera community is asking themselves because we stack up the successes, we stack up the failures. We're talking about enterprise versus retail. There's like so many different conversations happening. This community is growing. There's a healthy dose of chaos, which is good to see, but there's also a healthy dose of like confusion or misinformation or frustration or whatever. And it's like, it's a transition from a bear to a bull. And I asked a few questions of the community. Oh my goodness. I see Never mind that. Scrap that. I see Tom from PixFi has joined us. Tom, can you hear me okay? This is ground control to Major Tom. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hey, I can hear you.
Right on, right on.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you very,
Hey, brother.
very well. And make sure you just mute your mic when you're not talking, because I'm getting a little feedback. But yeah, PixFi, I mean, you've been talking about it. We've had a few conversations about it. To be honest, I have like no idea what I'm allowed to talk about or not. But I know you guys sent out an announcement. It's kind of out there. I just wanted to take a couple minutes here. Really happy to have you stop by, but like a lot of people I think are very curious about what PixFi is doing. Can you give folks like a little idea or breakdown of what PixFi is about, what the announcement is about, what we can expect to see from PixFi?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we've just started the soft marketing rollout, showing off what's going to be essentially the pre-sale for our INO. We've already shown the D20 dice for the Hedera theme, and we've yesterday we put out Solana. Tomorrow we'll reveal the Ethereum die, and in 2 days after that we'll reveal the Polygon die. So let me zoom back out now. PixFi is going to be an NFT marketplace aggregator. So I think people are now starting to get familiar with what aggregators are from a DeFi perspective. But just think of it this way: it's sort of your one-stop shop for NFTs on any chain. So if you go to OpenSea, you can go to OpenSea and you can click on the chain, and then basically the view that you're looking at for all of those NFTs changes, and you can basically shop for NFTs off of the marketplaces. So we're doing something very similar to that, with a couple of twists that I don't want to show off exactly what those are just yet, because they're still being built. But needless to say, our expectation is that the user experience will be a lot less frictiony than what you experience on some of these earlier versions of marketplaces. So that's sort of what we're going for, is for the complete removal of friction, and that includes payment. So that payment is probably the most frictiony part of everything. So we're looking at integrating Stripe, and we're working closely with them to make sure that we have a way to basically purchase digital collectibles off of any marketplace, from any chain that we're supporting. Our goal is to support about 12 chains at the beginning, and that's why we're going to have these whitelist pre-sales. We're going to have 12 dice, each one themed in all of the networks that we're focused on, and so those pre-sales will be spread out. And so our approach to this INO issue really is just to do a pre-sale that basically guarantees you a whitelist spot, that guarantees that you're going to get one of the INO NFTs, but we can also then spread that out over time. So the pre-sale is basically going to give you access to a subscription. So the way we're setting up PixFi is that on the front end, it's the aggregated marketplace. On the back end, it's going to be an NFT DeFi protocol, where there'll be various smart contracts for doing things like NFT rentals, NFT lending, peer-to-peer and pooled, as well as some other fun DeFi applications you can do with NFTs that are a little bit different than what you could do just with fungible tokens and meme coins. So that's basically what we're building.
That sounds awesome. And I mean, you speak to, solving some of those pain points and all those different things. I think that's fantastic. And maybe something to put it into context. I mean, a lot of listeners for the show, obviously are into Hedera. I was curious of maybe, is there a way you could outline maybe what it looks like for, let's say, either a Hedera NFT creator or a Hedera NFT collector, what do you envision kind of the flow for this marketplace kind of looking like that might be different than other marketplaces that Hedera creators or collectors have used in the past, beyond just, obviously there's products from different networks on there, but you talk about like, purchasing through Stripe or different things like that. I was curious as to like, what does that experience look like? What is that user story kind of like using PixFi?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely a great question. So I think the important thing to point out is that this is not a replacement for the native marketplaces that exist on these other networks. This is just an interface. It's basically it's new UI, it's new UX for those existing marketplaces. So we're working closely on Hedera with Centex. So your Centex experience, whatever you're purchasing off of Centex, you're still buying that off of Centex. You're just using PixFi as your portal, which is going to give you some alternative payment options. And since it's multi-chain, you could be somebody from Solana, basically looking to buy a dead pixel ghost off of Centex. But you could make that purchase with your soul, right? So you don't have HBAR, you don't need to have HBAR. You can just use your soul, and our payment engine will just make that exchange for you. And it's seamless, and then it goes directly to your profile wallet, and then from there you can export that to your Phantom wallet at your leisure.
Right. Okay. So what PixFi is about is it's less about like being a new marketplace or something new or different people have to experience. What you're talking about more so is creating more options and allowing people to do what they're already doing, but connected to other networks. So it's kind of like, PixFi is like, keep doing what you're doing. And we're just going to give you more options and more connections and build those bridges between networks. And then from a marketplace standpoint, it's kind of not the case that PixFi is like, hey, check us out, we're a new marketplace. It's the same thing, I think, for those marketplaces, like you mentioned, Centex, where it's like, hey, we're building some bridges, we're creating more options. So that's, I think, what PixFi is about, because some people might be like, is it a marketplace or do I still use Centex? But what you're talking about is, marketplace aggregator.
Yeah, no, that's correct, right? So it's a mechanism to aggregate these different marketplaces. It's essentially it's the Amazon.com, right, business model, right? There are many micro stores that exist within there, but it's one seamless portal. That portal has the friction-free process for taking advantage of your payment and shipping, as one sort of centralized profile. And that's really what we're looking at. Now, on the opposite side of that, though, so for the people who just want to buy digital collectibles, that's perfectly fine. You can check out as a guest. You don't need to be a member of the club, right? But for the people that wanted to take advantage of the DeFi side of NFTs, that's why we have a subscription model, right? So it's essentially a token gated access point to basically get into an area where you can have a lot of opportunities to make profit, and you can also have a lot of opportunities to take losses. It's going to be to your risk appetite, but we felt it was important not just to throw all of those things at the general public and make that basically sit in a section behind on its own. And the access point to get to there is going to be relatively inexpensive. It's not anything. It's not going to be anything that's it's not like it's going to be as expensive as your Netflix. It's probably going to be half of that. But you'll be able to make that profit on your first trade, right? To pay off your subscription for a year. And that's why we're doing those dice as the whitelist access point. Those are actually basically just pre-ordering of your subscription, and it's discounted at roughly about 50%. So you can even resell it for profit later. If you want to buy multiple ones and you only need one, you'll be able to go back and put those, so you'll be able to put them up on Centex and resell them for a profit. And we just want to make sure that our users have that opportunity.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That's great. And I appreciate you answering the dumb questions. Asking dumb questions is my job, I think. And last question for you is, you talk about, some of these like DeFi components, and you mentioned like borrowing and lending or different things. Like, that's one area that I think is pretty fresh for the Hedera crowd, is like, okay, so we got these NFTs, but like, where does DeFi come into it? I don't know if you wanted to just kind of tease that apart a little more, or kind of like go into that a little bit. Yeah, feel free.
Yeah. So, I'll give you an example. I have a Gen 0 Woox, and that's got a floor price of around 30,000 HBAR. Well, that 30,000 HBAR is not doing me any good right now, unless somebody wants to buy that from me for 30,000 HBAR. Now, on the other hand, what if somebody's willing to lend me 15,000 HBAR and hold that in escrow? And then, right? So then now basically I have the ability to do that peer-to-peer contract with someone else. You basically you mutually agree to the terms as part of that contract. And you have an option for the borrower to renegotiate those terms if they need an extension. And on the opposite side, what you'll have is the lender will have the opportunity to basically sell their position in that contract to somebody else if they need to exit for liquidity for some reason. So this way you have some fairness built in for both sides. And I think what that's going to do from an NFT perspective is it's going to really help contribute to floor prices not only going up, it's also going to basically backstop them, because if you have the ability to lend and borrow from some of these higher value NFTs, you're going to see a lot of interesting things happen in the space. The other part I'll point out is rental. So let's say you like to collect founders cards for Earthlings, and you have 40 of them. Well, let's say they have a new mint. That mint was for Steam. There was no way you were going to be able to afford buying, 40 of those INOs for Steam. You were only going to have the capital to do 20. If you had a contract, you could have rented the other 20 out. You still keep your founder's card, but you let somebody else use that for the mint. And so I think that's the other piece I think we're going to start seeing as well, because that's then going to help drive the value of founder's cards up across a variety of different projects. And then lastly, in terms of what does this do for creators? It just brings more eyes to your project, right? So if you've got a phenomenal art and you've got a really cool utility for your NFT collection, just more eyes are going to have a chance to see it, right? Generally speaking, most Ethereum people that shop on OpenSea or Blur never see the NFTs on Hedera. Now it's an opportunity for Hedera to basically have those NFTs visible now to users from other places. It also lets creators from Hedera really see what's going on in other networks. So we want to basically just, build a much larger community than what currently exists.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I get that sense from it too. You've got on your, Twitter profile, like it's about, you got the Bored Ape Yacht Club and the Utes right next to, some hangry barboons and other stuff. So that's what it's about. It's about aligning all this stuff and putting everything back to back. And to your other point too, there's so much value in NFTs. People hold so much value in NFTs, and it's like, with borrowing and lending, it's like you unlock that value, you get that value back out into the marketplace, make more liquidity. It's like, I think that those are some really exciting stuff. I'm looking forward to PixFi, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the last thing I'll comment on, and I think it's a testament to the innovation to Sam and Patricia over at Centex, but this idea that you can create this microsite, and as long as the founding team is willing to accept sauce as payment for their NFT collection. Now we have the opportunity to basically, essentially strip a currency right out of a collection and then change that over to a different collection. And so, if because the PixFi sales page will basically be able to interact with 12 different networks, it gives us an opportunity in the future to think about creating a new type of launch pad where people could basically launch NFT collections, not on one chain, but on multiple chains all at the same time. And then they could basically specify what currencies they want to be receiving it, right? So you could basically be a Hedera minted project. You could port your NFTs to, 10 different chains if you so choose. But then you could still specify that your payment's going to be in USDC, right? If that's what you want. So those are some of the things I think that are going to be coming to our space that's just going to open things up. So I think DeFi is going to basically lead the wave. NFTs will have their time again, 9 months from now. You'll start to see that market really pick up.
I think it's a great observation. Tom, appreciate the insights and you coming by to chat about PixFi. I think that it's much needed, and I'm super excited. So we'll have to have you back on once the launch goes down.
No, listen. Thanks for letting me jump up. And I think the last thing I was going to say is to get you back on track to your question about the poll.
Right.
I answered. I wanted to answer yes, but I answered no. And it was, I was hoping there was a third choice, and that was we're almost ready, right? And I think we're almost ready.
Yeah.
I think we need another 6 months or so. So within the next 180 days, I think we'll start to see some things happening that will basically put us in a position to really be ready for the bull. And I think from a timing wise, I'm just right.
Yep. Yeah, I feel that too. Awesome stuff. Tom, where should people go to learn more about PixFi? Just on X, or where should they go to dive in?
Right now on X, if you could also log into to our website, pixfi.io, and you can basically just sign up for an email to basically get first in line for when we're getting the information out. But the website will start slowly getting populated with a lot more information over the next 30 days. And then we're targeting mid-June for the sale of the first set of whitelist tokens.
Mid-June. Let's get ready. Awesome stuff, Tom. Appreciate you. And we'll check out PixFi. All righty. So, as Tom was saying, there's the poll. Anyways, I was a little bit surprised by the results, but I think Tom made a great point. Is like, maybe I should have added a third option, but I don't know. I like the idea of limitations. I'm a big fan of creativity through limitations. Yes or no? I asked the Hedera community randomly on, I think it was like literally, I was, in the middle of a meeting or something. I don't know. I just posted this to X. Is Hedera ready for the bull market? 570 votes. 66.7% yes, 33.3% no. So like literally exactly 1/3 of people said no, Hedera is not ready for the bull market currently. There's a lot of feedback and comments. I'd encourage people to go kind of, geez, there's a lot of Grelf memes. Oh my God, I love this. There's a Grelf GIF that's Max Walker Williams working out at the gym, but Grelf's face has been added to it. What a legend. I'm not going to go through each comment here, but there's like endless comments on people's thoughts. And yeah, I was kind of surprised. Yeah, 1/3 of people say Hedera is not ready, but I think it's kind of like to what Tom was saying, right? Is it's Hedera is not ready right now, but that's not to say that Hedera is not going to be ready in a couple months or 6 months or whatever. And again, it's not bad timing. I think that it's nice I wasn't expecting to get these many votes, but it's kind of nice to know that, I think that I would say if 1/3 of people say no and 2/3 say yes, I'd say that poll leads me to think that the community is kind of at a strong maybe right now, in a way where it's like, there's still work to be done, clearly, but the energy's there. That's the one thing that I've realized. I think that one thing that poll made me realize was kind of like, and again, I was shocked that almost 600 people answered that poll. There's a key that I think one of my main concerns, and we'll wrap up the show in a minute here, but like one of my main concerns for Hedera has been a lack of energy. And maybe this is where we'll end the show. This is a great way to kind of wrap up my thoughts and kind of everything going on is, that was, my main concern, my main kind of risk factor I'd place on Hedera was a lack of energy, right? And what I mean by that is not so much what we see in the data, right? Or what we see in the reports, right? We can see those reports where it's like TPS is going up or price is going up or TVL is going up or whatever. It's like, we've seen a lot of really great numbers on Hedera over the months and years. That's great. My main concern though was energy. And like, what do I mean by energy? What I mean by energy is, the literal raw form of energy, right? And we're seeing that kind of right now. And my poll kind of told me that is like, why are so many people like responding to like a poll that I literally just randomly sent out? Or why are so many people freaking out about this? Or why are so many people upset about this? Or why are there so many people obsessed with this? Or why are there so many people so excited about this? I think it's dumb. Or why are there so many people think this is dumb? I'm excited about it. We're seeing that a lot in the ecosystem of like, so many different perspectives, so much debate, so many things. And I don't know, I'm becoming less and less concerned in that regard because I'm just seeing energy. Energy is not organized. It's not always positive. Like a battery, there's positive and negative sides. And I'm seeing like a lot of energy in this ecosystem. And I think that it makes a lot of people uncomfortable, especially I think a lot of people who have been in Hedera for a long time, who kind of in like a weird way have a nostalgia for the days when nothing was happening. I don't know. There's something that's beautiful about the chaos of energy. It's a very necessary ingredient in kind of the startup ethos in Web3. And it's something that the Hedera ecosystem has been sorely lacking in a lot of ways. And the other thing about energy too, is it's also like about the amount of people, right? I think in the early days of Hedera, like 2019, 2021 or whatever, again, it was a group of like maybe a couple dozen people that were bringing that energy. And it's not to say that the, Hedera community is not energetic. It's just that like chaotic energy, that Web3, the degenerate retail chaotic energy. It's like, that's a power source that you need to scale to grow, even if you're an enterprise network. And I've been concerned for a long time because it felt like the Hedera ecosystem and community like just didn't have an appetite for that kind of energy. Like one thing is like on X, like you'll see me, you'll see me just not comment on certain things or not, talk about certain things because maybe I just don't have anything to really contribute to the conversation at the moment or whatever it might be. But another thing is like, I'm kind of taken aback this year about the amount of that kind of, again, raw, chaotic energy in the ecosystem and just kind of absorbing it. It's new. It's a new thing. I'm kind of like, it's thrown me off a little bit, to be honest, in a great way. And it's overwhelming. It short circuits some stuff in my brain. But it's here and I don't know. It gets me excited. I think that a lot of people might be turned off a little bit by it, but for me, I'm just kind of like, holy moly, like there's this overflowing sense of like, again, energy, momentum in this ecosystem. And it makes me super optimistic. I see the chaos on X and like the confusion or whatever. It's like, that's a power source, and there's a lot of good that can come from that. It's looking for stuff to do. And I think that's where, what kind of Tom was talking to and what a lot of people are talking to in the ecosystem is like, the next really big concern is infrastructure, mirror nodes, aligning support from the foundation and different stuff like that. I don't know. There's one part of me says, we're messing so much stuff up and the foundation is this and blah, blah, blah. Right. And then the other part of me is like, you know what? This is just playing out. This is as it should be. It's crazy, but this is energy. It's great. It's going to sort itself out, it's those kind of two voices that are constantly battling. And it's like, that's energy within itself. I don't know. Maybe I've caught the energy, so, I've been actually drinking a lot less coffee recently. I think that's another benefit of chaos in the Hedera ecosystem is, I don't need coffee to wake up in the morning. I just open X and my HBAR feed is just like out of control with like stuff that I have no idea even what's going on. And I get DMs all the time from people like, oh, sorry, man. Sorry, Brandon, I've got a spaces at noon on Wednesday. Sorry, I know your spaces is at that time. And I'm just like, I think it's great. Like 2 HBAR spaces happening at the same time. Like I've been hoping for that to happen, So I think that like, if you're in Web3, it's like, are you going to eat the chaos or is the chaos going to eat you? Because it's not going away. It's what we need. And I think that it can be a beautiful thing. I look at the HashPack INO and it's like, geez, of course there's a lot of stuff on there that's annoying or frustrating or whatever. But again, if you zoom out, look at it, what I see is like just this group of hundreds of people organically learn, like one big brain, right? Like hitting a wall and then learning something and then moving forward. Like that's kind of what I see if you really zoom out, is it's like this hive mind that something happens and it's like figuring stuff out, neurons are firing. So I don't know. There is energy here. And is Hedera ready for the bull market? Turns out that the answer is maybe. I think that's the official answer. So yeah, geez. I would say, what am I doing later today? I got more meetings and stuff and more work. So that's another thing. I've been so busy. I want to spend every day on this show, all day, every day. I love doing it. Expect a survey coming from the show soon too, more stuff. And a reminder, hashgraph.news has all the info about the show, all the past episodes, everything like that. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, on Spaces, X, live. Should be on YouTube video soon live. There's the video version of the show currently. You can go and watch the show, see me on camera. Hello. All the stuff on my computer screen. I'm pulling back the curtain. I'm bringing everyone into my process. And supporters of the show literally couldn't do it without you guys. So, we've got an HBAR address. The deets are pinned in the tweet at the top. Support the show. Literally makes it all possible. Every single HBAR I get to that wallet, I spend it on equipment for the show, services the show needs. And the results are clear. Started out doing the show for 10 people on Clubhouse. Now we're here. So yeah, appreciate you guys big time. Everyone tuning in, listening now. And I'm shocked that the spaces didn't die. Like that the live spaces worked. Like we're doing video on spaces at the same time. So kind of surprised, pleasantly surprised. Thanks again to Tom from PixFi for swinging by, chatting about NFT marketplaces. Shout out to people doing INOs, moving fast and breaking things. Shout out to the mirror nodes. Hello future. Goodbye past.
Thanks for listening to the Hashgraph Enthusiast Show, hosted by Brandon Davenport.
Listen to past episodes and support the show at itsbrandond.com/HBAR.